Hi guys. A lot of you probably listening to this are feeling a little bit of a sense of shock, maybe even despair, anger, sadness, because Donald Trump won the election last night. And I have to admit, I myself was quite frankly shocked. I didn't realize, I knew it was going to be tight, but I wasn't expecting him to just kind of win by a landslide like he did in those key states of Florida, Ohio. Pennsylvania is typically Democratic, so that one really surprised me. Michigan. So it was a shocker, and there's a lot of emotions surrounding that. So we wanted to talk to you guys about kind of our take on why it happened.
Yeah, definitely lots of emotions going on. It's a pretty complex election, I would say. A lot of people in the media try to simplify it, make it good versus evil, blue versus red.
Racist versus non-racist.
Yeah, and it's really complex, I would say, and it's really hard for a lot of people to wrap their minds around because a lot of emotions are being felt by those who have been really keeping up with what the media has been telling them, what news networks have been telling them, and it's kind of also bringing out some of the worst in people. Well, first let's talk about how this happened, okay?
Yeah.
So I just wanted, a lot of people are probably questioning how did Trump get elected? That's what I keep seeing. How is this possible? Who voted for Trump? Why?
And by the way, 59 million people voted for Trump.
That's
right. So
right.
I think, before we get into this, I know there's been a lot of people today, oh, this is just total endorsement of white supremacy and all these people are racist and sexist and homophobes and our country, is kind of as if our country just right under our noses developed these horrible tendencies. And to that, I would argue, yes, that is out there. And yes, those Trump supporters exist. But again, 59 million people voted for him, and I'm sorry, I just don't believe that all those people are bad people.
No, and that's the disconnect, is that there are people who have legitimate reasons for voting for Trump. I would say, in their minds, in their world, which is not the same world not the same bubble that a lot of people who are freaking out about this live in. And that's the thing, is that you live in a bubble if you're freaking out that bad. I mean, yes, I don't want a Trump presidency. I think that it will do a lot of damage. I agree with that. I think it can hurt a lot of people. But at the same time, I'm not going to be hating on a Trump voter and say, because of you or because of third-party voters, it's white privilege and you are a racist and a xenophobic person. That's bullshit, okay? You're completely ignoring the facts. So let me start by kind of first how this started, okay? Let's not forget, because there's a lot of blame going around, and let's not forget that it is Bill Clinton who encouraged Donald Trump the day before he ran to get more involved in politics.
Fact.
That's a fact, okay? Another fact is that the DNC worked with the Clinton campaign and the media to make sure that Trump and Cruz, the most fringe candidates, were on the forefront. And
because they assumed that these people would be the easiest to beat. And this is all in WikiLeaks. We're not just like crazy fringe people making this up.
Yeah,
these are facts. So
that's a fact. Another fact, the corporate media, CNN, NBC, MSNBC, CBS, the Washington Post, the New York Times, they all spent so much time covering Trump. The TV media spent over $1 billion of over $1 billion of giving Trump free airtime during the time of the Republican primary, where he got to grow, get recognition, get established, and it almost was reinforcing his ideas. They, instead of one, they should have equally covered everybody, but two, they were working so much, and I assume because of ratings, entertainment, because he's a fucking entertainer, but also mainly it's because they were thinking that he would be the easiest to beat, so they wanted him to be the Republican candidate.
Yeah, they were viewing him as an easy target, and even critics, like, a lot of the mainstream comedians, like Samantha Bee, John Oliver, even though they were coming out, Trevor Noah was another with The Daily Show, even though they were coming out again and saying, oh, look at this buffoon and how crazy he is, they were a part of that. They were still giving him coverage. They were still encouraging this kind of Trump fever that overtook the country. So in terms of exposure, yes, Jerry is absolutely right. He got a bunch of free exposure, and compared to Bernie Sanders, especially during the primary season, Bernie Sanders got like less than 5 minutes of mainstream coverage.
It was like less than 20 seconds is what they said.
Yeah, during a certain point, whereas Trump had already gotten all these minutes and hours upon hours, and they would just have a camera at his empty stage. He wasn't even talking, nothing's even going on, but the commentators are talking about Trump, and they became obsessed. The media became obsessed with him, and therefore they because they have such a huge platform, millions of viewers, everybody watches them throughout the election season to get results and to get people's takes, experts, pundits. They really did shape this.
They made him a viable candidate.
Exactly.
In the Republican election. They really did.
At the behest of Hillary Clinton's campaign and the DNC, which we now know were working pretty much directly coordinating. They were directly coordinating with the mainstream media.
Yes, they were.
Meeting with different pundits. Chuck Todd is one.
Wolf Blitzer is another. They gave questions to him. And then in the Bernie debates also... that's a whole nother thing. I'm not going to go there yet. But another thing to keep in mind is that is Hillary. Okay. So we saw that, Trump, they caused them to get real big. That's the rise of Trump. And then now it's a choice between who can take this guy on, Hillary or Bernie. And Hillary at the time, before she was a Democratic nomination, already had FBI investigations, had State Department investigations and audits. She had a lawsuit for the emails, for her stupid idea of keeping a private server in her home, and she didn't even let the State Department know. I mean, she had so much baggage. Also, let's keep in mind the speeches that she made money, personal gain, and Bill Clinton did to the banks. And she had all this baggage, and then let's not to mention the fact that independents already just don't like her. They already didn't like her before. They knew who she was, and that was a whole nother thing. So
and we saw in 2008 the voters that she didn't get. I mean, we already kind of had a trial run, so they knew where their weaknesses were. And in my opinion, they just totally didn't address them. And because of all these things that came out, and then eventually the WikiLeaks, it just became very apparent to people that Hillary Clinton was the candidate of the establishment. She was backed by huge corporations, banks. In her closest circle was Goldman Sachs. Like Jerry already mentioned, the paid speeches where her and her husband got millions of dollars to give paid speeches to these entities. And it's like we're living in a time right now where people are so frustrated at wealth inequality and Wall Street, and that whole Occupy Wall Street movement. And it's like she's pretty much the antithesis to that.
Exactly.
In a climate like this.
Exactly. And a lot of, you're just looking at the Republican primary, Donald Trump whipped the shit out of Jeb Bush, out of Marco Rubio, all these establishment candidates who were expected to win. He completely wiped the floor with them.
Yeah.
And why? Because it's people are fed up. People are sick and tired of Republicans. They see through their bullshit. They see through Democrats' bullshit because of the establishment. Because, and Trump, wiped the floor with them. And that just told you, and then just watching the rise of Bernie, how from like 2% when he started to almost winning the Democratic primary, which he really should have won. And you see, he was an anti-establishment, but on the Dem side. He was the one but he was the right one. He was the unifier, talking about equal rights and coming together and fighting, saying what really needed to be said, fighting for climate change.
And people came into stadiums and cheered for him by the thousands and tens of thousands. And that's what people like during the primary when this was all going down. And yes, I know we can't go back, but I think it is important to note that during the primary, even though it was so clear that especially the young people were so attracted to him, which A, the young people are the future of the party, B, young people were a huge part of what they call Obama's winning coalition.
Yes.
And Democrats need young people to
because
win.
they supposedly don't come out and vote, and they don't come out and vote because they see through those bullshit, and Bernie was bringing them out to vote. He also brought lots of independents out to vote. I don't know if you all remember, but every open primary, Bernie was winning. Bernie had an awesome chance of winning because independents could vote.
In the primary,
In the primary, and that is who you need to win a general election. And to me, the media completely ignored that fact, downplayed that, and they also did not report the significance of the investigations at the time of the Democratic primary and how that would play out in the general election, especially against a Donald Trump.
Yes, who was running a very strong anti-corruption, anti-corporate, anti-elitist platform. So she was just the easiest target. He didn't even have to try very hard. We did a post-debate debrief after their first debate, and we pointed it out, how easy it was for him to call her out on things like trade, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But
Exactly, and we're almost there. I mean, like, the next thing was that, Hillary's message. She had no message. She had no clear message. The corporate media, including all those, TV shows and even like comedic shows, they were all just spreading the fear of Trump. If Trump wins, hell is going to break loose. You have to vote for Clinton. And that was just not enough. You remember why did Barack Obama win? Because he ran on hope and change. Mm-hmm. Who was running on hope and change this time? Donald Trump.
Not the change we wanted, guys, but that for some people, he was representing that.
Because people were sick of what was going on right now.
Yes, and my big beef with her, also another beef that I had with Hillary Clinton is she's a smart woman. Everyone always says that she's a smart woman. She's politically savvy. She's been in this game a long time. To me, it was very easy to see, even if you're just going to copy Bernie's platform, what to say and what to do in terms of very basic things like raising the minimum wage. She would, there was some things like that she just would not be strong on. She would talk in very vague terms. We all need to be uplifted and this and that. And, vague. She did have some very niche issues. Like I know she talked about pharmaceutical drug abuse and
autism
and those are, yes, I appreciate that. Bring those conversations into the debate. But it's also, as we've already been saying, it was an anti-establishment year, clearly. When you almost lost to somebody that nobody knew his name, Bernie Sanders, an independent, has never been seen in American history before that he got that close. So you already know, I'm in an anti-establishment year. This is what people want to hear. Start talking about shit. And I said also, if she comes out and strongly opposes the Dakota Access Pipeline, that would totally win so many progressives to her side. Just that one action. But she couldn't do it. And the reason that she could not do it, and it was so obvious, is because she was so in bed with the banks that are backing it, with the oil companies that are building it. I mean, in a year where people are so frustrated that the wealthy have all this power and they're controlling everything, and then she's literally best friends with, communicating with, getting paid by those people, that is an uphill battle. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It should have been obvious to everyone. And another big part of why Trump won this election is trade. Because I remember in one of the debates, Trump hit Hillary really hard on trade because he's been coming out and speaking out against NAFTA and speaking out very hard. And I witnessed her defend NAFTA, like if it was so good and it helped people. But you know what? The Midwest was really devastated by NAFTA, by this trade agreement that took all of their jobs and sent them overseas. And it decimated their economy, it decimated their area, and it was felt very real to them. So a lot of people don't understand that, but to them it was very real. And they knew the Democrats did this, she still supports this, they don't have my back. Trump saying he's against this, maybe he's a man of the people, and he managed to manipulate people to believe that he's a man of the people. But that was a smart move by him and a stupid one by her.
Yeah, if anything, she needed to come out strongly, just like with her Iraq war vote, which in the first election that she was in 2008 pretty much disqualified her. That was her big hit back then because people weren't talking about his trade as much. But yeah, when she said that she supported NAFTA, and then she did come out and kind of tepidly oppose the TPP, but she wasn't campaigning on it like Trump was. And yes, for the Midwest, these people were hit multiple times. So they had high wage jobs in factories. Those factories were shuttered, and now they're living in poverty. Oh wait, now the 2008 economic crash happens. That devastates them even further. People lose even more jobs and also their homes. The Midwest is like Detroit, perfect example. Half the city was shuttered and abandoned after the 2008 housing crisis. The Democrats were part of, they voted to do the Wall Street bailout, which a lot of people, especially like a lot of conservatives or those that lean conservative, really hated and disliked. And then pretty much the whole country did.
Yeah.
And then we had Occupy Wall Street, and there were just all these things. And Hillary, because her husband literally passed NAFTA and literally passed a lot of these policies that caused them to be impoverished, they're associating her with that, with their economic downfall. And I mean, in a sense, they're right. I know she doesn't, and some people will say, well, she can't be responsible for her husband's policies and yada, 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 but it doesn't matter. She's the first lady, and she did come out there and support things like the crime bill, and other very neoliberal policies that ended up eviscerating the middle class. And that's just reality.
Yeah, and I mean, she came out in support of NAFTA at the debate with Trump.
Yes.
And I was very surprised, and I knew that was a wrong move. And it was because she lost those Midwest states, and that's how Trump won. He won because he got those Midwest states. That's what really did it. They took it for granted. I was just hearing on the radio too, some of the representatives that are in that area were saying she never came. She just sent surrogates. She wasn't talking to the people. She wasn't here. They weren't aggressively campaigning there.
Well, and let's not forget, after she won the nomination, she did not campaign for 8 weeks.
No, instead she raised money. Sorry.
She went, yes, and it was very public. She was going to private donor fundraisers.
Yep.
And so yet again, that contributes to this image that who do you care more about? These private donors, these rich people that are giving thousands and thousands to your campaign? Sure seems like it. The election is imminent in only a couple months, and you haven't campaigned in 8 weeks? That doesn't make sense. So, we don't say all this to say, because I've had people say, well, don't shit on Hillary, like she tried and she's way better than Trump and everything. And so we're not doing this to shit on her. We're doing this to explain why she lost.
Yes.
For those of you out there who are just befuddled by it. And again, I was surprised. I thought even with everything, with all the scandals, with all the WikiLeaks, the pay-to-play corruption with the Clinton Foundation, I mean, there were so many things, but I still thought, because the mainstream media was like saying, oh, she has this high chance of winning, I thought she was going to win.
Well, I think
but clearly they were just so out of touch.
I think that was the big problem, because the mainstream media and TV and the comedians were all one-sided. There was no objectivity. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, maybe, yes, I agree, Trump should not be president. But as a media, as a news network, as a satirist, you're supposed to be objective. And there was none of that. So, of course, how do people believe you if you're not objective? And all they ever did was just bully the voters and make the voters feel like, if you didn't vote for Clinton, you're a horrible person, you're xenophobic, racist, sexist, you did this, it's white privilege, and people are like, fuck you, don't tell me who to vote for, this is a fucking democracy. And of course they were going to feel that way, and people are already pissed. And let's remember, again, they're also living in their experiencing day-to-day life in poverty. And to them, this is after 8 years of an Obama presidency. And let's not pretend like Obama's presidency was all rosy and everything, like some people are saying as well. You know, we're still doing many wars. We're still selling arms. We're still droning. We're still killing civilians. We're still doing a bunch of shit.
We're still half of our nation still living in poverty. I mean,
1 in 5 children are in poverty and hungry. Obama enacted the Bush tax cuts. He's expanded oil drilling. He has more deportations than Bush. I mean, come on. Let's not pretend like things like, yes, with Clinton, she had a great, she gracefully had, I thought her concession speech was very graceful, and it was the best speech I've ever seen of hers, honestly, but that's because she was real. And yes, with Clinton, she would have been at least speaking more about equal rights, women's rights, gay rights, but she still had her flaws, is the point. She had this baggage, and there's a whole nother group of voters out there. The majority of the Americans are independents. They're not Democrats. Okay, they're independents, and these voters are not thinking like you. They're thinking about how they've been affected. And did this in this election? Did they ever talk about the issues? Really? Did they ever talk about Flint again? They didn't talk about real issues. They were just shitting on each other the whole time, and it was disgusting. And people were sick of it. And maybe, like Ren said, if she came out against Apple and supporting the native treaties, if she did something bold like that,
$15 an hour minimum
that's
wage
simple.
makes that her platform. You know how popular that is? You know how many people across the nation would probably vote for her just for that? Because again, people are in poverty, they desperately want to raise.
Yes.
But she just refused to come out on those issues that, hey, not only number one are right and just and should be done, but number two are popular. And it's like at a certain point as a candidate, if you want to win, you got to play to win. And I feel like even, I told Jerry, even if she would have lied on some of this and not followed through the promise, she couldn't even do that. You know what I mean? Just to try to win votes. Like, she was so out of touch. And I think her and the mainstream media and the DNC establishment felt entitled, and they thought, well, Trump's just so bad, people can't vote for him. And we have all the minorities on our side, so we're going to win. Yeah, they took so much for granted.
Yes. Arrogance.
And one more issue that I want to talk about is, the third party vote. And whatever, I'll be open. Me and Jerry voted for Jill Stein for the Green Party. We don't live in a swing state. If I would have lived in like Ohio or Florida or one of these like hotly contested states, I would have reconsidered that. But I knew 9 times out of 10 Trump's going to win Texas, so I might as well give my vote to the person that I choose. But it came out today, even if all the people that voted for Jill Stein voted for Hillary Clinton, she still wouldn't have won. She would have lost Pennsylvania, lost Florida, lost Ohio.
And Texas.
Yeah.
She lost this on her own.
Yeah.
Okay? That's the point, is that she was a flawed candidate that the DNC and the media shoved down her throats. They literally colluded and pushed Bernie out in order and smeared him with sexist and racist smears in order to get the establishment status quo candidate, Hillary Clinton, to be the Democratic nominee, even though now I'm hearing all of them saying this is an anti-establishment election. Well, then why the hell did you push for this establishment candidate to be our Dem primary when it should have been Bernie? When we should have had 2 anti-establishment candidates going at it? One that speaks with racist, xenophobic, and, undertones, and one that speaks with unity and love and for the people. I mean... Yeah,
it would have been an easy victory. The polls at the time of the ending of the primary showed that he was up by more than 10 points in almost every state.
Every poll that came out for months, every poll was him dominating Trump.
Exactly. And another issue here... another graphic that I saw today is that the Republican turnout this year is actually down from previous years. But the reason that they won is that Democrat turnout in comparison to Obama in 2008 and 2012 is way down. So there was about 7 or 8 million registered Democrats that didn't show up to vote today.
Exactly.
And that's a huge part of it too. So there's, don't blame the third parties. There's also people out there that decided to stay home because I'm going to guess they probably weren't inspired by either candidate. I mean, that was the theme. You kept hearing it over and over in the media. They're both shit candidates. And yes, they were both shit candidates. One had like 5 open FBI investigations. One was a maniac billionaire who totally swindled people and had a reality TV show. That is not a real choice. And that's what I said, the day of the election. I said it on Twitter, if Trump wins tonight, blame corrupt establishment politicians on both sides and the lack of real choice.
Yes.
Because that is really, in my opinion, what did it. We shouldn't be forced to choose between these two horrible choices. We need greater diversity in our electoral process.
Yes, we need to include more parties, and that's a real big problem, is that they bully people, if you voted for Jill or if you voted for Gary, and that's all you did.
Or in the primary, even if you voted for Bernie, you're hurting our chances. Even when it was still the primary and it was our God-given right to fucking vote for who we wanted to, they were saying, well, if Hillary doesn't win this, she's the best candidate to win, and
yes,
and this and that.
That pissed me off.
Not true.
That pissed me off because at the time they were saying, well, if Bernie wins, he's not going to help the down ballot candidates. He's not going to help the Senate. Or, we have to have Hillary win because she's the only one that can defeat Donald Trump in the general election. Bernie can't because he's a democratic socialist. And that was just so far from the truth.
Exactly. Bernie actually, even after he had lost the primary, ended up raising thousands of dollars for other progressive candidates on down ballot races in Senate, House. And in contrast to Hillary, which this is another scandal, there's so many scandals you can't even list them all in one podcast. But this was another major scandal during the primary, that it found out that the Hillary for Victory Fund had been taking money that was due to the state parties, because there's laws when you fundraise for the entire Democratic Party, you need to distribute that to those in those down ballot races that need that support, and they did not pay them. And they were keeping all the money for themselves. Again, breaking the law again. And I'm sorry, there's only so many times that you can do that where your integrity is questioned. And that is what happened. I heard on NPR, they were interviewing a Trump voter in Pennsylvania. And he straight up said, I didn't even like Hillary. I didn't even like Trump. I just voted for him because I hate Hillary and she's the most corrupt person I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yes.
So people are also underestimating that a lot of people, for the same reasons that people that didn't like Hillary voted for her so they wouldn't get Trump, same thing happened on the other side. Some people were so disgusted with everything that they were seeing from Hillary Clinton, they were pushed towards Donald Trump. So don't underestimate that.
And honestly, Hillary already had that effect on independents and Republicans. They already didn't like her. I remember she was like the most hated person by Republicans, yet somehow they tried to sell that she was most likely to work across the aisle and get support from Republicans and get the vote. Like, it was just bullshit that was sold to us. And that's one thing I want to really emphasize, is that the people were sold bullshit by our media because they're in bed with the politicians. And because of that, we got the wrong candidate and we got a Donald Trump because the people were not informed enough to make good decisions.
Yeah, the mainstream media needs to own up to their role in this. Not only that they were colluding with one of the candidates, which is just totally against journalistic integrity, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
And as Jerry was saying, the need to stay objective. And I think the people in voting for Donald Trump really did reject the media, because as you said, the media was trying to play this narrative of, anyone that votes for Donald Trump is a deplorable mouth breather.
Yeah.
Hillary's words.
It's like they pushed people too hard, where they were like, you know what, I don't care, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, because they're making everybody feel like shit. And that's what pisses me off too, is because right now I'm seeing people hating, like I think I said this earlier, but they're hating on Trump voters. And you know what? Yes, some Trump voters are racist or xenophobic or sexist. Yes, there are some people that are like that, but you know what? The majority of Trump supporters are not that. Okay, so let's not say you did this, it's your fault. Whose fault is it? Is that our corrupt political system, our corrupt media, and corporate money that's influencing our politics. All those things are the reasons why we have a Donald Trump. Don't blame the people. I don't care. I don't judge anyone who voted for Hillary. I don't judge anyone who voted third party or who voted for Trump. Because this is a democracy where you're allowed to make a choice of who you think is the best. And so
and what is it saying if people, given their choices, think Donald Trump is the best? What does that say about us, our society, our political system, and the options we have?
It says we're fed up with this shit. We're fed up. I mean,
that's my ultimate analysis, is that, a lot of people said, oh, if you vote third party, you're a protest voter. No, actually, the people who voted Trump did a protest vote.
Right.
In my opinion, I think they did a protest vote against the establishment, against what they should have done, and that's why it was such an upset, because everyone was just kind of in this assumption, well, he can never win. And it kind of, I saw a tweet where it was kind of like, oh, he'll never run, oh, he'll never win the nomination, oh, he'll never win the presidency. And it's like, we kind of went through that assumption, and he was underestimated.
The night before the election, the Huffington Post had it polled where Hillary was gonna the probability of Hillary winning was 98% or something like that, and that went down as election night went around. That's what I'm saying, is that they treat you with kid gloves and they put you in a bubble where you don't see the reality.
Yeah, and honestly, I want to know who was on the ground campaigning for Hillary Clinton. I never saw one Hillary volunteer. You know what I mean? I'm sure they existed, but just in comparison to the Bernie movement and how many thousands of people signed up, and it really was all across the nation, everyone was coming together, she just did not mobilize people in that way. And it was because she thought she didn't need to. She thought it was in the bag. Once I have the nomination, it's over. No matter how many times the FBI tries to indict me, or I have to have a hearing before Congress, or WikiLeaks publishes all these things that show that I'm directly in bed with the corporations that have fucked you over for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
She thought, she was so vain, and the DNC was so vain and so cocky, that they thought they didn't even need to run a grassroots and appeal to the base.
Exactly.
Which is unions, labor, minorities. They really didn't even, like, Black Lives Matter. What the fuck did she do for that, other than meeting with some moms?
With the moms, which was all political maneuvering.
Yeah.
If you now go into the WikiLeaks, if you look at the emails, see all that, we didn't even have to go to WikiLeaks.
Yeah.
And now looking at WikiLeaks, you see all the political maneuvering and posturing, and not one, I don't know, I didn't see any emails where she actually gave a shit about the American people and doing things for the right reason. All I saw was them trying to do things and get stuck in how it's gonna appear and the optics and who's gonna get upset over this, and at the same time, WikiLeaks, going back to the media, is like showed how Donna Brazile, she was a CNN contributor, right now she's the DNC interim, and she was a part of the DNC, was handing debate questions to the Hillary Clinton campaign in CNN town hall and in a CNN debate. I don't know.
No, it's okay. I mean, look, this is part of it, and this is part of it too, because the media was so in bed with the Democratic Party. They attempted to drown out every other voice, like Gary Johnson, like Jill Stein, and like Bernie Sanders, because even though he was technically running in the Democratic Party, he was an anti-establishment voice, and they knew that, and they attempted to silence him through not covering him at all.
Yeah, they would rather silence Bernie and push him out rather than win the election. That's kind of how I see it. Hillary was such a flawed candidate. Bernie was obviously the one that would beat Trump, but they still pushed him out because they wanted to keep the status quo. They wanted to keep Hillary Clinton.
And they knew because at the convention, we were there. Jerry was there for most of it, and I came later. But yeah, again, I saw on TV when Bernie came to speak, there was literally in the convention applause for like 5 minutes straight. He was the man that the people wanted. Even Hillary supporters would have gotten behind him, of course, because he was amazing. So
he was a man that talked about the issues, and that's why, because he didn't make it about him. It wasn't I'm with him.
Yeah.
It was about, we're together and we're fighting for the issues. And that's what he did as he went all around. And I think I've gone into that before in previous podcasts.
Yeah, we have. So the point is, yes, it's scary. I felt in the pit of my stomach. I felt nausea. I felt fear and anxiety. But the more that I thought about it, I kind of realized, if we give in to that fear, that is what's going to do us in. If we give in to fear and hatred and we start pointing the finger and saying these people suck and they're racist and they're no, we've got to be higher. We've got to go higher than that, and we've got to be better. And we have a big fight to wage. You know, we have a big fight to wage. We can't take it for granted. You know, what we've had in terms of EPA, climate is something I'm really concerned about, abortion rights. There's a lot of things to be concerned about, and I understand that concern, but picking each other apart and not recognizing that we democratically elected him according to our system. And if you don't, and, you know, she won the popular vote. If you don't like the electoral college, then look into that,
and speak
it's
out.
Bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. and that's kind of exactly well said, because right now we need to come together as a nation. We need to use this as a wake-up call to become smarter, more engaged, you know, pay attention, see what caused this, learn what happened, you know, see the political system and the media and how what happened, what the fuck happened. We need to see that and learn from it, and we need to work together to fight against all the shit that Trump's about to do. And we, you know, in 2 years, we have the Senate elections, we have the midterm elections, which we can get a whole bunch of Dems in there. So if we could survive for 2 years, we can really have a huge effect. But we got to work together. We got to fight like hell, you know. And
we have to reach across where we can reach across. Because that's the thing. Trade, international trade, that's an issue we can reach across, you know, with the Trump supporters and get done what we can get done. And I'm not, you know, again, I understand it's scary, and like especially for Latino people, undocumented people, Muslim people, gay people. I can understand why this is pretty painful, but again, as Jerry just said, we need to understand why this happened, and you know, the ultimate reason, as it always goes back to, is corporate control. Koch brothers, and you know who sponsors NPR, our national public radio? Koch Industries. Just suck on that for a while. You know, in terms of, you think, oh, okay, these media places try to present themselves as unbiased. No, they're bought and sold by corporations, and they're controlling the narrative. They're controlling what we're seeing. And then at the same time, they're also directly contributing in huge amounts to campaigns. So what do you expect?
Yes,
you know, it's not our interest anymore.
There's conflict of, exactly. It's their interest. It's a conflict of interest everywhere. And we need to fucking give a shit and demand change and hold people accountable, because there's no accountability. People can do this shit and get away with everything.
Yeah, exactly. Chuck Todd still is a main anchor on MSNBC, even though he literally hosted a party for the Hillary Clinton communications campaign director. He hosted a party, and they talked strategy and how we're going to spin this narrative. And you know what? If you don't think that there's something wrong with that and corrupt with that, then...
yeah,
I don't know. You know, yes, Donald Trump is bad, but that shit is also bad. And that is why she lost. Because she was fake and she wasn't connecting with the people and the issues. She was just trying to manipulate things.
Exactly.
So, anyways, let's go ahead and wrap this up. This has been quite a rant. Give us feedback. I know it's been an emotional time.
Yes, but... and it's okay to be sad, but just don't linger there. Lift your head up. We're in this together. You're not alone. And
we survived. Remember, we survived Ronald Reagan,
George Bush Sr., Richard Nixon, and George Bush Jr. George W. Bush.
This isn't the first racist, homophobe, sexist we've encountered. So take heart. We know what to do, right?
It's going to bring us together. All right.
All right. See you guys.